So we've got a nice simple heron silhouetted tutorial today. So only 4 colours are used in the tutorial. It's great for a beginner and it's going to show you how you can create this heron without actually drawing it out. So stay tuned and we'll crack on. Okay, so we've got a lovely silhouetted heron on a lovely sunset sky. What I'm going to do is I'll pop this photo up on my community page so you can use that for the tutorial. I'm going to show you today how to create this sky and how to do this silhouette quite easily over the top of it. So it's a nice one for a beginner. No drawing. So there's no drawing required and only a few colours. I'm going to use 4 colours. So I'm going to wet my paper and I'll talk you through the colours as I go. I'm using a Saunders Waterford cotton paper and Cotman watercolours by Winsor & Newton. I have got the first one, cadmium yellow. So I have got a pea-sized blob with about half a teaspoon of water in there. And I'm just going to come on and stroke this colour through. You want to make sure you've got all your colours prepared before you start. And a nice layer of water on here. So I've got a couple of bits of yellow coming through. I'll rinse that off. I've got a tiny bit of permanent rose. I've not put quite as much water in there because I know I don't need as much. So I try to conserve the paint. I'm going to come in with that in the middle. Now, one of the little tricks that I can tell you is if you use a rose, you can avoid getting a green in a sky. So this is why the rose is appearing here, and I'm going to pop a little bit in here. It will go peachy in places, that's fine. We're just stroking through in a horizontal stroke. The last colour I'm using is an intense blue. It's a phthalo blue. It's quite shooty, as in it goes very far, but it is the perfect colour for this. And it is intense, which is what we want. What I will say is if you dry it with a hairdryer, it does tend to fade, so try not to. But it is a beautiful, beautiful colour. So I'm going to come in with that at the top. That was half a teaspoon of water to a pea-sized blob of paint again. And it will start to blend down. So I'm not going to go too close to that yellow. I'm just going to let it do its thing. Now this bit in the middle is quite purpley. So what I'm going to do is take a little bit of that blue in, take quite a lot of blue off my brush. That doesn't help. Just rinse my brush totally. There's a big blob of blue there. At least this shows you how to fix it. Just going to blend that in. So basically I want to create a purpley colour in this section. So to do that I need to mix the blue and the rose together. Now because the blue is so intense, it's overpowered that bit a little bit. So what I can do is take a bit more of the rose in, and that will mute it back out. So you get that lovely faded effect, and this can go into the yellow now. That will blend quite nicely. Take a bit more of that rose in down here. So if it starts to look a bit green, you want a bit more rose in there. Okay, so that's got a lovely base for our silhouette. So I'm going to let that dry and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so that's dried really nicely. It's blended, it's flowed a bit. There is a little bit of a mark where I took that neat intense blue on, and I'm going to show you how I would cover that. So with most things, not everything always goes right, and you need to be able to fix it. So what I'm going to do first of all is look at the tree, and then I'm going to show you how I would approach the silhouette of the heron. So what I'm going to use is ivory black. I'm going to come in, this is round number 10, so there's a little bit of water on here. And we're just going to pop in tree trunk. You want to make sure that this paint flows really nicely. The tendency to, when you're a beginner, is to try and keep it really thick, and that makes it harder for it to flow. So you want to load your brush up and let it flow. I'm going to come down from around number 10 to around number 6 now. So you're working your way down. Coming straight back into that colour again. And I can just start to create these branches. So this branch here, I'm going to narrow it down, but I'm going to bring it through that bit that I don't like that I've created. So that's just going to disappear because it's going to have a black silhouetted branch over it. So you've just got to evolve your painting sometimes. I'm going to go to a point. If I can't get to that point, then I'm going to stop and I'll swap down to a smaller brush. If I turn this way, turn my picture this way as well, I'm able to paint downwards. And that means I can get a nicer point when I'm painting downwards. So I'm going to continue to flow. You can vary the pressure of the brush, but you want it to get thinner as it comes towards the end. And when you get to a point that you can't get it any thinner, then you swap down to a smaller brush. There's this bit coming off here. Rinse that one off, and I'm going to swap down to a rigger. That's a long thin brush. If you find a rigger tricky, you can try a line writer that's slightly shorter. A short thin one is quite hard to do branches because you have to keep dipping back in all the time. So you want one that's a bit easier really. So what you can do now is start to flow off and create these bigger branches, or lots of little branches, sorry, the little wispy ones. So remember that tip of if you paint downwards you can get a nicer point. So turn your work around so you can get that nice point. There's no rule that says you have to stay the right way. Keep turning. Some of these will cross over. You can rest on your little finger. You don't have to get every single branch exactly the same. You're going for an impression of. If you vary where your branches come away so that they're staggered, they are quite staggered in the photograph anyway, but it makes them look more natural. Remember to keep crossing over. Just flit around the page really, just doing lots and lots of branches. Nice and dark. Remember to leave a gap for your heron. I may be stating the obvious there, but better to state it just in case. Just going to twizzle around a little bit more. Continue to paint downwards, so I'm getting those nice points. You can do a few little finer branches off, a little sort of flick and a Y Tends to work quite nicely, a flicky Y at the top of a branch. So they're just getting narrower all the time. Narrower and wispier as your branches get bigger. Twizzle back round. So that's already looking really effective. If you've got some bits that are pooling, what you can do is just spread that colour along. They tend to, as they dry, you don't tend to see it in the same way. So this bit's pooling a little bit where I've gone on when it was quite a lot of paint, but it will just blend in as it dries and you won't see it. So don't get bogged down with those little twiddly bits like that, because they can get bigger and bigger and bigger the more you fiddle with them. So you're better to do less is more. You'll hear me say this frequently. Now there are some very wispy bits just on the ends of some of these branches. So I'm just going to pop a few of those on. You could use a fan brush. I'm not a big fan of a fan brush. Because it is too even, I tend to prefer to try and paint things in myself or to use a sponge. But this is something you probably could use a fan for, and just lightly pop these in. But I'm just using the rigger, just painting in a few. It's just getting the right direction. They are quite nice and effective. I've got a little bit of a branch here, which I always like. These little bits here are what's going to frame the heron. So you want to get a few little bits in around here, because they're going to be quite nice. Can go on forever. Just do a couple more. Twizzle around again, just so I get in that nice flow. I find it much easier to paint downwards than I do upwards. It's just finding what works for you. Okay, so we're going to paint the heron now. What I'm going to do is twizzle upside down. So you're going to see it as a shape rather than the actual heron. The challenge is, when you come to drawing and painting, is you need to look at shapes rather than actual things. So it's all well and good saying, your brain will be saying to you, I know what a heron looks like. And it's the same with anything. Your brain knows what something looks like, and it's switching off that part of your brain and making your brain see the shape. So by turning something upside down, you are seeing a shape only, and you are not identifying it as a bird, a heron, and basically I just want you to follow the shape. So I have got a round number 6, and I'm going to paint in the body shape. It doesn't have to be exact. It will still look like a heron. It's quite a brave thing because you're not drawing it first, but I just want you to run with it. It's a good lesson in learning what you should be looking for. And it is that shape. I'm going to keep tweaking. I'm looking at that bottom part shape. Following that shape around on the neck. I'm not seeing a heron, even though I'm talking to you like I can see a heron. It's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the shape. Got that little bit of light in that shape. Let's focus on getting this shape here. And then this is quite straight. So I want you to use whatever brush you're comfortable with. You're doing detail here, so you need to be comfortable that you have got enough control to be able to do it. So I'm going to continue with my round number 6 because I'm a bit mad like that and I do like a number 6. Though this one has slightly lost its point now. I'm still looking at the shape all the time, looking at the shape. Thinking that shape's not quite right. And then tweaking it and tweaking it. I'm going to swap to this one for this bit. And then on this shape there are a few little wispy bits. I can start to put those on. This back needs to come out a little bit. There's a few wispy bits here. I haven't quite got the shape of there right, that's better. Then I'm going to look at this shape here, which I know is a leg. And where it's coming to, into the body. Hopefully when I turn this round it will look like a heron. And there you go, it's a heron. So there we go, we have a lovely heron. The temptation to fiddle is always there, and I would say to you is once you've done, don't fiddle, because what tends to happen is you come in, you do a little bit more, you do a little bit more, you do a little bit more, it gets bigger and bigger and then it gets misshapen. So it's a really good exercise to say, actually it looks like a heron, I'm going to stop. It doesn't have to be a perfect heron. I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. It's a really nice, again, simple subject for you to have a go at as a beginner. If you fancy having a go at anything else, I'll pop you another video here and a playlist here. Please do like, subscribe and share, and I'll see you next time.